started as a rumor, a strange, whispered tale passed around the town of Brookhaven. Every year, on the winter solstice, the clocks stopped at exactly 3:13 a.m. for 1 hour. No one knew why. Those brave, or foolish, enough to stay awake during the vanishing hour would swear they heard strange noises, whispers that didn't belong to this world. Others claimed to see shadows moving where none should be. Most dismissed it as folklore, but for Max, it was a challenge. "It's just an old wives' tale," he told his friends with a cocky grin. "Let's see what actually happens." Reluctantly, his best friends, Jake and Sophie, agreed. On the night of December 21st, they gathered in Max's basement, armed with flashlights, snacks, and their phones to document everything. By 3 a.m., the three of them were wide awake. Max checked his phone. "All right, 10 minutes until the vanishing hour," he said, his tone mocking. Sophie glanced at the old clock on the wall. Its hands seemed to move slower than usual, dragging toward the dreaded time. "Do you guys feel weird?" she asked. Jake scoffed. "It's just nerves. You're letting the story get to you." But even Max had to admit something felt off. The room seemed colder than before, the shadows deeper. The air carried a strange hum, low and constant, almost like a vibration you could feel in your bones. At exactly 3:13, the clock's hands froze. Max held up his phone, the screen glaring in the darkness. The digital time was stuck too. "Okay, that's creepy," Jake muttered. Suddenly, the power cut out. The basement plunged into darkness, their flashlights flickering on instinctively. Sophie's breathing quickened, and Max felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "What the hell?" Max whispered. A deep, resonating thud echoed through the house, like something heavy falling upstairs. "Did you hear that?" Sophie whispered, clutching her flashlight like a weapon. "Probably just the wind," Jake said, though his voice wavered. The thud came again, closer this time. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, rhythmic, as though something was moving through the house. "Max, this isn't funny," Sophie hissed. "It's not me," Max snapped. They sat frozen, listening as the sound grew louder. And then, it stopped. The basement door creaked open. Sophie screamed, the sound muffled by Max's hand as he tried to keep them quiet. Jake pointed his flashlight at the stairs, but the beam was swallowed by the darkness. "Who's there?" Max called, his voice shaking. There was no reply. Instead, they heard whispers, soft, disjointed voices overlapping each other. They weren't coming from the stairs. They were coming from the walls. Sophie's flashlight flickered and died. She grabbed Max's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "We need to get out of here," she said. Jake nodded, edging toward the stairs. Max followed, keeping Sophie close. The whispers grew louder, now laced with a guttural, inhuman growl. As they reached the top of the stairs, the door slammed shut in their faces. "Open it," Sophie cried. Jake yanked on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The growling was right behind them now. Max spun around, his flashlight catching a glimpse of something. It was a shadow, taller than any human, its limbs unnaturally long and twisted. Where its face should have been, there was only darkness. "Run," Max shouted, shoving Sophie and Jake toward the door. Jake kicked it, the wood splintering under his desperation. The door burst open, and they scrambled into the living room. The house was unrecognizable. The walls pulsed like living flesh, and the windows were covered in a thick, black substance that seemed to writhe. "Keep going," Max yelled. They stumbled through the house, the whispers and growls following them. The air grew colder with every step, frost forming on the walls and their breath visible in the flashlight beams. Finally, they reached the front door. Jake fumbled with the lock, his hands trembling. "Hurry," Sophie screamed. The growling was deafening now, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps closing in. Just as the door swung open, Max felt a cold hand grab his shoulder. He turned, his flashlight falling to the ground. The creature stood inches away, its face still a void but its presence overwhelming. It leaned in close, its breath icy against his skin. "You don't belong here," it whispered, its voice like shards of glass. Max screamed and lunged for the door. Sophie and Jake pulled him outside, slamming the door behind them. The three of them collapsed on the snow-covered lawn, gasping for air. They turned to look at the house, but it was dark and silent, as though nothing had happened. Max checked his phone. It was 3:14 a.m. The vanishing hour was over. But as they walked away, none of them noticed the faint handprint, black and twisted, burned into Max's shoulder.